Welcome to the Midwest Blitz. It's college football comfort food for the Midwest soul. Now, here are your hosts, Coach Drew and Big Nick.
Welcome again to another edition of the Midwest Blitz. It's Coach Drew and Big Nick. Yup. Well, we're going to have some Friday night action as Washington hosts the Scarlet Knights, where college football all began. Nick, this game we previewed while we're previewing it. We also covered Washington versus Maryland. That was another good game last week. Well, let's get right into it, Nick. Go right ahead.
So Washington's offense, which is very talented, has multiple NFL players at quarterback, at wide receiver, at running back, with Damon Williams, with Denzel Washington, with Mr. Coleman at the running back position, has been held down long enough. I got Rutgers. They've got the third worst defensive grade in the country, according to Pro Football Focus. Huskies minus 10.5 against the third worst defense in the country. Bank this one, Huskies minus 10.5. There's no way Rutgers is going to hold this Washington offense down, Coach Drew.
Well, they also have, besides banking that, some people are banking on some mileage. If you're a Scarlet Knight traveling over to Washington, the amount of miles they have to fly, the time distance and change on it. We got a 9 p.m. kickoff Eastern time for Rutgers. Now, we talked about 9 a.m. for West Coast teams coming to the Midwest or even the East Coast. Now we have a team like Rutgers that has to fly all the way to Washington, start at 9 o'clock and cover. Their timing is going to be off. I mean, kudos to what they've done this year, but I think Washington does cover the spread. If you guys want to bet on that, minus 10.5, 10 is where the fluff is. If it starts getting too high, you already know the risk. Put a unit or two down. That's normal procedures here on the Midwest Blitz. Anything else you want to add about this game, Nick?
Man, I feel good about a Washington cover here. They're due for a breakout game and playing one of the worst defenses in Power 4 football or all of Division I football right now. Dude, bang the Huskies.
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be 57 degrees at kickoff. It's going to be cold. It's going to be 9 p.m. Like, this does not look good. This is on Friday, so a lot of you guys will see this out on Thursday. Yeah, I mean, this is a great game to watch. If you got nothing else going on Friday, I know there's MLB, but here at the Midwest Blitz, we love all sports. Here we go. Now we're going to travel to Illinois, where they're hosting the reigning national champions, the
Ohio State University. Correct.
State. They dot their I's, and over here at the Midwest Blitz, we also cross our T's, and that's what Nick is going to do for us with this preview of this game.
Ohio State has the number 1 points per game defense in the country, and Illinois has the number 124 havoc rate allowed by their offensive line. That is a recipe for disaster for Illinois. I think that Luke Altmaier has to have the game of his life for Illinois to win this game or keep it competitive. The point spread is Illinois plus 14.5 at noon Eastern time on Fox. Drew, I'm kind of leaning on hitting Ohio State minus 14.5. I'm just not sure how they score enough points, and Ohio State will be patient offensively as they have been most of the year. But with that stat, the best points per game defense against an offensive line that allows the most big plays by the other team's front seven, I'm not sure if Illinois keeps this game close by the end. I think it will be close at halftime. What do you think?
Yeah, it might be close at halftime. I do see where a lot of people are going to be looking. The Ohio State defense is a really good, stout defense, and Illinois has been struggling to run the ball. I think that's really going to dictate what the score is going to be at halftime, is if they can establish a run. Also, Ohio State has some elite wide receivers who Illinois has been struggling with some injuries and some banged up players in that secondary. I mean, the only good thing Illinois really has going for them at this point is that they have a Heisman hopeful in Altmaier, and they're hosting at home. This could be the final nail in the coffin, as 2 losses. I am a Notre Dame fan, but 2 losses is really hard to make it to the college football playoffs. But I will say this, a man pushed into the corner, right? All odds against them. This is college football. This is why we watch it. You got Brett Bielema, who's going to be pushing a corner to win a game at home. He's going to have the Fighting Illini fans backing him up, tailgating. It's that big noon kickoff. It's going to be on Fox. So you guys already know that this game is going to be a huge game it's a huge game to start with, right? Ohio State travels. I'm not comparing them to the Penn State situation that we saw last week with UCLA, but I will say that's why we watch college football, because any given Saturday, I even saw that in the NFL, Nick, believe it or not, some of the gambling odds, there were some upsets. People were like, oh, this is a snooze fest. We're just going to take all these teams. Boom, flip the script. That's why we love and watch the game, because even as we predicted, we don't know what's going to happen all the time.
Well, Ohio State they still have a pulse, unlike Penn State at UCLA last week. And Illinois is no UCLA. I know that they got rained on with a lot of criticism after the Indiana game a couple weeks ago, but Illinois is a viable, very good top 20 level football team. I truly do believe that. So this game could be interesting. It's going to be tough, though, for Altmaier. He's going to have to make a lot of plays, and the Illinois offensive line and running game are going to have to produce again. Fegan and Valentine and all those guys. Also, Hank Beatty. Don't ever forget about Hank Beatty. He's one of my favorite guys in the country to watch on offense. Wide receiver who also has made some big plays on reverses and trick plays offensively. So I think this will be a fun game to watch, at least through 2 to 3 quarters.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I hope it goes down to the wire. Just, I know that you wouldn't want to see that because of the betting perspective. But, my family's huge Illinois fans, and, I understand that the Ohio State can win. I've seen them win multiple games. I've even seen them beat the Notre Dame Fighting Irish that I root for. So we'll see how that happens. Now we're going to head over to Toledo and Bowling Green's matchup. Now, what's this? Why are we bringing this up? Well, we are the Midwest Blitz. We cover the MAC. We even cover sometimes our cousin, the Big 12. One of the biggest things that you guys have to realize is there's a huge rocket. They are called the Toledo Rockets. It's a huge rocket pointed right at no other than Bowling Green, separated by less than 100 miles. This is a big, huge matchup in the MAC. You got two rivals going against each other. Now, I understand you're going to be watching Illinois versus Ohio State, but you're going to pull up your tablet, you're going to turn on the Bowling Green Falcons, and you're going to watch them play Toledo. That's also at noon. Find out on ESPNU. I want to talk about this game briefly. You got Tucker Gleason going out there, trying to prove his stats so he could be a late-round draft pick. There is guys out here. I mean, anytime you get a rivalry game, and it's the MAC, it's notable to mention. You also have former Notre Dame quarterback Drew Pine out there for Bowling Green. Bowling Green, I haven't seen Pudge Alert, but I'm sure he's going to be there as well, the cat for Bowling Green. Hopefully doesn't get intercepted by any Rockets. I mean, this is just going to be a fun game to watch. Maction, baby. What do you got to say, Nick? Anything you want to say about this game?
Big
Maybe
time
some
match.
side notes?
We love Tucker Gleason. I think Toledo should be the favorite to win the MAC this year, but I'll tell you what, the MAC right now is like playing. It's like throwing it on the roulette board, Coach Drew. I know you're a fan of roulette, but the MAC right now is almost Russian roulette. I mean, nobody's undefeated. Teams like Ball State have overachieved compared to what they were supposed to do. Bowling Green is a threat and has improved as the seasons went along. We're interested to see what Tucker Gleason and the Rockets do at Bowling Green. I will have that on one of my several TVs here at the crib, and maybe we'll
In the
post
war
a
zone.
video of that. The war zone, the war room. Yeah.
The war room with Big Nick. One of the things I want to mention is, for stats that people don't care about, I'm playing as Northern Illinois in my college football dynasty, and in year 2, I still have a chance with 2-3 record, and I'm like, how's that possible? And then I'm like, look at the real life, Mac. I mean, everything's open, So just throwing those out there for random stats that nobody cares about. Well, while we're talking about random stats, and I'm just giving out some stuff, there's this team. It's also in Michigan. There's actually 2 Michigan football teams. There's actually more.
There are.
But 2 Big Ten teams in Michigan. The other one being Michigan State. This one doesn't get a lot of love. They're sitting at 3-2, 0-2 in the Big Ten. And they're looking across the board, and they have this coming from the West Coast, riding high with Thor, coming in at 1-4, 1-1 on the Big Ten. Weren't they just 0-4? Wait, they just beat Penn State. Holy Toledo. we're going to mention Toledo there. Holy Toledo,
Ooh.
like the Oakland A's announcer used to say. We got Michigan State looking down at UCLA. What's going to happen here, Nick? You like Michigan State, but UCLA, I mean, you talk about Indiana being the Grim Reaper. The UCLA might have the cipher right now. Go ahead and take it away, Nick.
Okay, so the Bruins go to East Lansing, a wonderful, wonderful town that I've been to once upon a time. Plus 8.5. This is a noon kickoff on Big Ten Network. Now, gambling wise, how do you bet this game? Sparty should win this game at home. I've watched. Now, look, if any of you wonder what we're doing here on the Midwest Blitz, I've watched almost every UCLA and every Michigan State game this year. Michigan State, based on the body of work, should win this game, but how could you bet it? Because UCLA went Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde last week and beat Penn State, who admittedly is in an absolute tailspin. Penn State should and is ashamed of themselves right now for the way that they played in the first half against Oregon at home during the whiteout. And they looked like absolute dog crap at UCLA in the first half last week. But with new play callers at UCLA and a new energy, I mean, Nico, who we've hated on all year, I've been a number one UCLA hater and a number one Michigan State fan, but if the UCLA offense looks anything like they did last week, Michigan State's defense is going to struggle to control the line of scrimmage or anything else, especially with Nico being as effective as a runner as he was last week. 3 rushing touchdowns, 5 total touchdowns for Amalivia. I'm interested to see if Michigan State shows up the way that I thought they would early, and I'm kind of a Spartan fan right now, because I like Aiden Childs, I like Nick Marsh, I like this running game, but we don't know what we're going to get out of UCLA. So UCLA is a wild card right now, so I don't have a bet for you, but I think this game could be interesting in a lot of different ways if you really love to watch college football.
Yeah, I absolutely. This also plays at noon on October 11th. That's Eastern time. This will be on the Big Ten Network. UCLA, everything should be forgotten of what happened at UCLA up to Penn State. I feel like they hit a master reset. Comparison is the thief of joy. And I feel like UCLA deserves that reminder going into this game. Like, they beat Penn State, shouldn't reflect. They got to leave all those games in the rearview mirror.
What's past is past for UCLA right now. The first 4 games where they look like a dumpster fire, that's in the rearview mirror, right, Coach Drew?
Yeah, absolutely. So the only other thing I will say, though, is Penn State somehow got into a trap game, right? Classic trap game. And UCLA, well, it's out. There's film out there now. So can Michigan State study the film, see what UCLA did against Penn State and correct it now that they're not this wild card team, and they can beat prolific team? I mean, again, whether you believe that Penn State's going to make it to the college football playoffs, it's very highly unlikely right now. Like most teams that have 2 losses, I will say this though, that's a good team with lots of talent, and people are going to look back on that day and go, how the hell did this NFL All-Pro player, this All-Pro player, and this All-Pro player lose to UCLA, who has a bunch of people who are working as accountants? There's nothing wrong with that. You have a job, you have networking. This is college football. It's a realistic thing. I'm a former college athlete. I get it. That's why I'm talking in front of a mic, and I'm not playing baseball. But I digress. We got to go cover another game, don't we, Nick, where Patrick Mahomes takes Nebraska to go play the Maryland Ravens. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me say that again. Bubba Fett takes Nebraska to play the Maryland Terrapins, who are actually one of the better teams out there. Isn't that right, Nick? Go ahead.
So Maryland's defense, this is the shock of the season for me besides the upset last week, is that Maryland's defense is one of the best in the country by any measurement. Rushing yards allowed, passing yards allowed, points per game, all these things. And even on Pro Football Focus, their defense has been one of the most efficient and one of the most physical line of scrimmage in the country. So the matchup between, that's my spot. Sorry.
So one of the things that we are looking at here is Maryland's 4-1. They're 1-1 in the Big Ten. They lost to Washington last week. We got Nebraska that's 4-1. That's also 1-1 in Michigan. It's muddy water territory. The Matchup predictor according to ESPN gives Maryland a 33.4 chance, while Nebraska has 67. For the mathletes at home, they're giving Nebraska 2/3 of a chance to win. Now, what does that say about the spread and all that? Well, you have Nebraska, who's minus 6.5 on the road. You have Patrick Mahomes Jr. throwing for 12 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, looking really well. And then you have Washington, who has 9 touchdowns and two interceptions for Maryland. I mean, similar stats. One of the things that is different is that the leading rusher for Nebraska has 200 extra yards against Maryland. This game is going to be a dogfight. A lot of people don't give credit to Maryland, but Maryland's done a lot of good things of recent, while Nebraska also has done things good. It's going to be a good matchup, isn't it, Nick?
For sure. I didn't think I would be saying at the beginning of the year that Maryland has one of the best defenses in America, but I am saying it, and all the numbers back that up, and they have played a few solid opponents. They haven't played a top 10 team yet. Some people would say that discounts their viability on the defensive side of the football, but over a 5-game sample size, allowing less than 3 yards of carry is significant for this Maryland defense. So the Huskers' offensive line needs to play really well to help Dylan Raiola and Emmett Johnson get things going offensively. Because if Raiola ends up in 3rd and long against this Maryland defense, which has been potent all year, it's a recipe for an upset. This is another game that's too scary to bet for me, and I thought as the year went on, I would feel more comfortable with bets, but I mean, nobody saw Maryland coming the way they've been playing, and I mean, Malik Washington at quarterback for Maryland is a dynamo waiting to happen. I think he is the best freshman quarterback in the Big Ten, not to take anything away from Julian Sayin, because he's got the best receiving core in the Big Ten. This would be another one that would be fun to watch at 3:30 Eastern on Big Ten Network. I'm interested. I'm really interested. I mean, Nebraska should win the game. Nebraska's been pretty solid this year. They lost a close one against Michigan. They squeaked one out against Cincinnati their first game. But I think this is a fun game to watch. So if you're sitting in front of the TV and you got an extra one, or you don't have your favorite teams not playing, I would watch this game. I think it could be really interesting.
You know, that's ironic you said that, because for a second there, if I closed my eyes, I thought you were an actual Nebraska fan. I mean, with those comments, I feel like that's what they've been saying for the last 10 years. Yeah, this team's pretty good, you know. Hopefully they can win this game and just continue to take that in stride. And, you know, it should be fun to watch. We should win. We shouldn't lose. And then they lose those games. So, again, I get it. I mean, Nick's kind of feeling like a warmed-up Nebraska fan over there in comparison to what's going on.
Drew's going to throw me some shade because at the beginning of the year, I was not a Cornhusker fan as far as their prospects for this year. I thought they were overrated. I'm impressed with Dylan Raiola more than anything. And Emmett Johnson at running back, he's a very good player also. He's definitely got NFL potential in his future. But the Maryland defense is tough, man. And I know, hey, if you're watching this, put in the comments if you've actually watched Maryland's defense. Dude, they don't mess around up front. It is not easy to establish any kind of running game against the Terps.
We all know that is. If you guys haven't got it yet, it starts with a quack and it sounds like a duck. I mean, we haven't got there yet, guys. Don't worry, the chapters will be there if you need to skip ahead, because that's where we're going to be most of the time in this podcast. But again, let's give where credit is due. Cornhuskers, they look like they're going to be doing some good things this year. Again, now I'm going to sound like a Nebraska fan. Hopefully they can win this game on the road and continue in stride. And that one loss to Michigan, again, was just a wake-up call at home. So, you got something to say before we head over to Wisconsin?
All I was going to say is if Nebraska wins, it keeps their chances of a lot of things alive. I know they had college football playoff hopes at the start of the year and maybe Big Ten championship appearance hopes, potentially. If they lose, though, Maryland has broken a glass ceiling that was set for them at the beginning of the year. So it's going to be a very exciting win for whoever comes out on top.
Well, at the Midwest Blitz, we do know facts and stats, and apparently you can lose to Michigan and still win the national championship. That's all I have to say about that. So, moving on to Wisconsin, where didn't you say something about not opening really good? Or you said you made an innuendo, I believe.
Well, Iowa visits Wisconsin. Wisconsin is plus 3.5 at home. I don't think that that's the spot that Wisconsin wanted to be in at the start of the year with one of the toughest schedules in the country. I believe preseason, Wisconsin had the toughest schedule in the Big Ten Conference and maybe second nationally to the Florida Gators, who have an absolute gauntlet to run in the SEC. A great Iowa offensive line versus a terrific Badgers run defense that has been wasted this year. I mean, to defend the run as well as they have, your team should be in position to win a lot of football games, and it has not panned out that way for Luke Fickell and the Badgers. The Wisconsin offense has struggled mightily through quarterback injuries. They were playing their third-string quarterback last week after they benched the second-string guy. I know the starter had a non-contact knee injury early in the year. I am not dumping on the Badgers. I had a buddy that played there. I'm a fan of the Badger program, but the home crowd at Wisconsin plus 3.5 might become a little fickle if they have a slow start against Iowa. And they need all of that home field advantage to compete against the Iowa offensive and defensive line, who are absolutely ridiculous. Drew, I would liken Iowa's team, it's all centered around the offensive line and defensive line, which we talked about the line a lot on Midwest Blitz because we talk real football. We don't just say what I heard the other day about the primetime game of the week. Oh, it's this quarterback against that quarterback. We understand here that what happens up front sets it up for the quarterback to be successful, no matter how good they are. And this Iowa team is like they're like pro wrestlers. They get off the bus. They know their offense isn't going to score 50 points. They don't care. They're going to try to run it down your throat, and defensively, they're going to punch you in the mouth up front. And I think the Iowa offensive line against the Wisconsin defensive line, if you're a football junkie, is an interesting matchup. But I don't see how Wisconsin's able to score enough points. Never thought I'd say this, to beat Iowa. Iowa's going to score some points. I'm not sure what Wisconsin's going to do, and I know that the hometown fans in Madison are not very happy with Coach Fickell right now. So, I don't know. I don't root for this game to be the way it is right now, or my feeling about the game to be the way it is right now, but holy smokes, people are not excited about what the Badgers are doing.
Yeah, the last 3 games that Wisconsin has played, well, it started on September 13th, which holds dear to my heart when Notre Dame lost to Texas A&M. But Alabama also smoked Wisconsin 38-14. Then they went on to the next week. They hosted Maryland, lost 27-10. And then they went to the Big House and lost 20-10. Now, if you're looking at trends, only time they scored, and I think it was on I don't know, luck, I guess. One of the plays, I believe, when they played against Alabama, they're only averaging about 10, well, if you average it out, 11 and a half scores against other teams. So when you're going against Iowa, if you say Iowa, you have to be licking your chops. Iowa held Indiana to only 20 points and competed through the 3 quarters. We don't know what team is going to show up for Iowa. Iowa's literally on dial-up. Sometimes I feel like they just, if they were just running on a modern modem and just doing things correctly, they would just be light years ahead of everyone else. They lost to the Cyhawk early in the season, which we covered, to Iowa State. Iowa State just lost a huge game last week to Cincy. This team, you're looking at Iowa. What is this Iowa team? Okay, they beat UMass, one of the worst teams. They did beat Rutgers. Rutgers is a decent team, and they did that on the road. They beat Albany, but they lost in the Cyhawk, and they lost to IU. I mean, I feel like the Riddler. I'm just throwing out question marks everywhere. I don't know what Iowa's going to do. Wisconsin's run defense has been pretty good, holding up Iowa. Or, I'm sorry, possibly can hold up Iowa. Iowa's going to run the ball. I mean, I'm hoping that they just do what they need to do to take care of it. It's going to be a jump around at roughly 8 o'clock p.m. It'll probably be 7:30 p.m. Central Time when the jump around happens. If the game starts at 6 p.m. Central, that game's going to be on FS1. You guys can check it out. Will the Badgers get their first Big Ten win? Where's Iowa heading? They're 3-2. Can they compete in the Big Ten? Who knows?
I got Iowa minus 3.5. I don't think that Wisconsin's offense is going to generate much. Although, if you take my Iowa minus 3.5 bet that I've already placed, I mean, hold your breath because Iowa won't score a ton of points. Although I will say this, Iowa absolutely lit Rutgers up, who I already said earlier has a really bad defense this year. Iowa might put some points up. I don't know. Wisconsin's rushing defense is so good. I can't discount it. I'm repeating myself now. This is a total, if you're a offensive defensive line nerd, this is a game that you would analyze and do film study on. I just don't think Wisconsin can score, though. They've got one of the lowest, as of last week, they had the lowest yards per rush in the Big Ten, tied with Purdue. So Wisconsin will not run the ball against Iowa at all. Iowa's defensive line they're nails tough, man. They really are. I saw when they played the Hoosiers. They got like I said, they're WWE wrestlers. They're coming out to body slam you up front.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to also head over to another close game. This one's going to be played at 6:30 NBC at what in the pregame we were talking about possibly a sold-out Coliseum at USC, where Lincoln Riley was shocked that the head coach of Michigan said that. He's like, well, our players are going to go over there and, take pictures, but we don't want to get lost in the lights in the Hollywood. He's like, but I will say, luckily the stadium's going to be sold out, probably most of the Michigan stuff. I mean, I'm quoting the last part exactly what he said, but it was very clear why he said that and what it was. And I told Nick pregame or pre-podcast, he looked at the reporter and was like, what? Why did you say that? Who said that? I mean, he was very confuzzled. And one of the things before I let Nick tell you about how dumb analytics is, because ESPN Analytics has USC Trojans with a 68.5 chance to win. Now, Nick is going to tell you why that doesn't happen and why you should probably take Michigan's money line, because it's pretty obvious, isn't it, Nick?
So I want to recap the story that you just told. So Sharon Moore said that the Coliseum might be sold out because the Michigan fans were coming to buy all the tickets because USC and UCLA never sell out at home during the regular season. Correct, Drew? Am I right so far?
Correct.
And then a reporter brought this up to Lincoln Riley, to which he responded, what? Who said that? Like he didn't realize they can't sell out at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's just one of the most hilarious college football stories of the week. We should clip that just to clip it for the Michigan fans or for whoever. All right. The media has been high on USC since the preseason. Some of our insiders, our Notre Dame insiders, have been high on USC all year because nobody can stop thinking about their ex-girlfriend, apparently. I've been told by Notre Dame people, USC's a 10-win playoff team, and dude, that's I don't see that. I will say this, USC's got one of the best high-flying potential offensive passing games in the country. Ava for USC is a legit quarterback, so there is no question or criticism on my part or on Coach Drew's part, I think, about whether or not USC has potential to burn you in the passing game. My question is, why don't they tackle well? Why don't their linebackers play gap assignments well? Why do their linebackers have one of the highest havoc rates, mostly meaning tackles for loss, but then they don't execute well on a down-to-down basis against the run game? Michigan should absolutely hammer USC running the ball because USC's defense is built for speed and built for talent. Hey, Drew, how many sacks and how many touchdowns do recruiting stars score you in a real college football game?
That's a good trick question. Why don't you answer it?
It's a 0. It's a big fat 0. Now, look, it's good to have 4- and 5-star recruits, but if they can't play their assignments and they can't tackle well and they play in Los Angeles, which I guess Los Angeles looked tough last weekend when Penn State came to town and didn't show up. Michigan has a chance here to prove the program of their identity, which is toughness. This is a finesse passing game of USC against a hit you in the mouth running game by Michigan. This is brawn versus finesse. The Wolverines' run game has a chance under head coach Sherrone Moore, who is a former offensive lineman and really values the big boys up front and executing in the run game, loves running backs. They have wide receivers on the team. That's obviously not their priority. This is an old school Midwest hit you in the mouth run game versus a West Coast passing team. Michigan has a chance to be successful here. But my question here is Michigan's pass rush this year, per all the sabermetric stats and all the PFF nerd stats, I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of numbers on this, but their pass rush has not been the strength of their defense this year. That might be based on opponents that they played and things like that. So Michigan fans, don't scream at me in the comments, please. I'm not saying that you're not capable of winning this game on the defensive side of the football. What I am saying is, though, you cannot give Jaden Mayava time to sit back there and pick you apart because he's capable of doing it. He's one of the only quarterbacks in the country that I would say could beat you on any down without pass protection. And I even say that. I say that about him more than I say it about Dante Moore at Oregon and more than I say it about Fernando Mendoza at Indiana. And it's not because I necessarily think he's a better player. He's just built to get back there and sling it. You have to get pressure on him, and you have to have sustained drives on offense that are built on the running game. I know that you got the best home run hitter in the country at running back, which is Justice Haynes. We talked about that last week. But you can't just live on a few long touchdown runs. You have to execute on a down-by-down basis. And I know, Wolverines, that you are capable of doing it because this is a USC defense at linebacker and defensive line that tries to shoot the gap on big play situations, meaning tackles for loss, tackles no gain, but does not have good gap discipline. So Sherrone Moore, as an offensive lineman in his playing career, is doing what Jim Harbaugh passed the mantle for him to do, which is to run the ball up your ass. This is a game for Michigan to prove that they're legit right now. I think they can do it. I think the pass rush on defense is my biggest question for Michigan, being able to win this game. Also, I know Rod Moore played last week at safety. He was coming off the injury from the national championship game a couple of years ago. This is Rod Moore ready to defend this USC passing game when he's out there? Because this USC passing game is for real. They'll treat you like Madden football if you're not back there ready to cover somebody and get some pressure in the quarterback's face. Coach Drew, what do you think about that?
Well, first off, I just want to flash back to the Wisconsin-Iowa game. Shame on Coach Drew for not mentioning that is classic Big Ten football, trench warfare, Iowa versus Wisconsin. But now, moving forward, back to the Michigan and USC thought, Michigan is going to run the ball. They're going to do everything in their power to control the game. Here's what I see happening. If Michigan can run the ball, which they're going to, and make USC, right? They're one of the worst teams on penalty yardage. Okay? They're ranked 123rd. If they can't be disciplined, Michigan's going to have the ball for a long time and they're going to keep them out there for a long time. The defense is going to get tired. On the flip side, what if, now we're going to play the what if game, USC starts airing it out, which they're going to do, and they convert on third downs. Michigan's going to get frustrated. If Michigan somehow falls behind, I'll say 14-0. That's not my prediction. This is a hypothetical. Will they change their offense, or will they just keep running the ball and trying to control the clock? Because when you run the ball, yes, you are losing the clock, but you're behind on possessions. And if you're having success like USC has with their third downs, we're looking at tendencies. I think that's one of the biggest things. Who's going to break their tendencies, right? Is USC going to do a better job of not getting penalized? I think that's a positive. And can Michigan also adapt if things go wrong? Because sometimes we see that in college football. Live and die by the run and the pass, What do you say, Nick?
Okay, I've said this a bunch of times. For any of you that never played football and never coached football, I'm going to tell you something, and most of you are going to think I'm an idiot. I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it again. I'm surprised I haven't said it yet, Coach Drew. No offensive play caller in the world would ever pass the ball if they weren't forced to. I'm going to say it again. If you can run the ball up somebody's ass and down their throat, nobody would throw the ball. Now you're like, oh, but when we throw the ball pretty in the air and blah, blah, blah.
It's beautiful.
The only reason that you throw is because you're either given the opportunity or you're forced to. And that is the identity of this Michigan football team. It's the identity that they want. What's the joke about J.J. McCarthy? Why does he have struggles in the NFL? Well, why don't you try handing it off 50 times? J.J. McCarthy knows how to hand the ball off. Sorry, Michigan fans, if you're offended by that, but we all know there's a level of truth to that. Michigan is going to come in, and they're going to try to fulfill their destiny as the master of the rushing game. And that's the program that proves my point better than any other program in recent college football is, yeah, we're going to run it. We're going to run it again. We're going to run it again. And you know what? I kind of love that about them. It's as smash mouth as it gets, and we love smash mouth football here on the Midwest Blitz.
Absolutely, we do. And I agree. Michigan does a really good job of what they need to do. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. That is for sure. Well, ladies and gents, if you skip to this chapter, welcome to the end of the podcast. As we're running down to our last team, we're going to now leave the Coliseum as a Wolverine took on a Trojan, and now moving to Eugene, Oregon, where there's this duck and he quacks, and, Nick likes them, but, there's this team that he likes even more. And I feel like almost standing up, putting my heart on it, because this team is his team. David versus Goliath. I mean, this is like biblical right now for the Midwest Blitz. How is Coach Nick feeling about this game? Go ahead, Nick.
So the number 7 Indiana Hoosiers, my Indiana Hoosiers, visit the number 3 Oregon Ducks at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time on CBS. This will be touted by all the casual media hacks as the best quarterback matchup of the season. And they might be right about that. Fernando Mendoza faces off with Dante Moore. Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza, whoever wins this game, as long as they come out with a pretty good stat sheet, has a really good chance to be a Heisman finalist in New York later in the year. But nobody cares about that right now because these are two programs that care about winning football games. Dan Lanning, one of my favorite coaches, Kurt Signetti, my favorite coach in the country as an IU fan. Dan Lanning and Dante Moore have been fantastic. Dante Moore came in last year after he had started his freshman year at UCLA, which obviously has had some problems. He came in last year to sit, knowing he would sit to learn the offense and come in prepared this year, and boy, has he ever. Dante Moore has been so impressive. I can't oversay how good this kid has been. And Fernando Mendoza for the Hoosiers is not far behind him. The kid came in from Cal and was the most sacked quarterback in the country last year, played with a good defense but a bad offensive line and ran for his life and still put up pretty good numbers. So this is a story of two quarterbacks who have escaped bad situations and went somewhere else under a good coaching staff to really improve their situation. So that part to me is a great storyline. This is where the transfer portal actually wins for college football, where you have hardworking, smart, studious players that go somewhere. One that was willing to be a backup for a year in Dante Moore, and another in Mendoza who was just in a bad situation at Cal. So that is fun. Everyone talks about quarterback matchup. That's why I love these two quarterbacks so much. Mendoza against Iowa, if you guys didn't watch the game, made a couple of the toughest throws under pressure where he got absolutely slobber knocked and threw a dime piece Steve Nash pass to a wide receiver in crunch situations. Mendoza is an absolute dog, as is Dante Moore. All right, quarterback matchup aside, because this is the Midwest Blitz, and we don't just talk about quarterbacks and pretend like quarterbacks play one-on-one like it's a basketball one-on-one matchup, which absolutely irritates the shit out of me when I watch game breakdowns on this. Almost nobody in the country watches Indiana, and I'm telling you, I watch everybody as much as I can, Indiana and Oregon included. I am an Oregon Duck fan. Their program is fantastic. I am an Indiana fan. I've watched every game that Indiana's played. Old Dominion right now, who was Indiana's first game of the year, is tracking as a top 10 defense in college football, even though they play at a group of 5 conference. Indiana has been stout in the run game, stout in the pass game. Oregon is one of the most talented offenses in the country. Decorium Moore at wide receiver. Drew, remember when we had a question about Oregon's wide receiver group when Evan Stewart got injured in the offseason, who was their number 1 returning receiver? And I said, Decorium Moore will have to step up for this Ducks offense to do what they need to do to live up to their potential. And boy, has he ever. Decorium Moore has got NFL stamped on his forehead. The kid's not just a great athlete. He plays hard. He blocks hard. As we pointed out earlier in the year, Coach Drew gave him a game ball one week for how hard he blocked. I could not be more excited about this football game. It's just too bad somebody has to lose. This is what I want to say. Back to the narrative about it being a quarterback matchup. I think that the team that wins this game is the team who establishes the run better on first down. Because either one of these defenses, if the quarterbacks are forced into third and long, obvious passing down situations, it's going to create turnovers. Indiana's defense, they've got 2 all Big Ten safeties. They've got D'Angelo Ponce at cornerback, who was out in the Iowa game, Coach Drew, with an undisclosed injury, but will be back this week. Allows Indiana to mix up coverage looks between man and zone. If you haven't watched D'Angelo Ponce, he is an absolute dog. If you like undersized players that excel on the football field, D'Angelo Ponce is your guy at 5'9", 175. They asked him, how do you feel about covering bigger receivers? He said, it's a bigger target to hit. He will be matched up one-on-one with Decorium Moore. So you've got a 5th-year senior who was a JMU transfer that came in with Cignetti to Indiana against Moore, Decorium Moore. I absolutely cannot wait to see that matchup. But it's going to be who wins the line of scrimmage on first down and allows their quarterback a chance to hit a few crucial plays in the passing game. That is going to be what decides this game. And I want to say this about both front sevens on defense when we're talking about winning first down in the run game. Oregon's front seven is fast, and they hit you hard. IU's front seven is deeper and more athletic than last year, and IU's team this year is 100% better and more well-rounded at almost every position, especially in the front seven. We were worried when they lost NFL draft choice CJ West to the San Francisco 49ers that they might not be able to stop the run this year. By every advanced statistical metric, Indiana's defensive run game is on par with pretty much anybody in the country. So this is, I hate rolling the dice and making a pick here because I like both these programs and I'm an IU fan. I do want to say one more thing about IU's defensive front versus Oregon's front before I make my pick. Oregon's massive offensive line featuring Isaiah World. What is he, 6'7", 6'8"? He's big as a doorway. Big old dude. I love watching Oregon's offensive line, but they have performed this year, according to advanced statistics, better in the passing game than they have in the running game. And this IU front seven rotates linebackers and defensive linemen in, and has replaced CJ West with a couple of other big 300-pound defensive linemen who are capable of really stuffing you in the run game. This is my concern for Indiana, and this is the reason why I'm going to make the pick that I'm going to make. Over the last couple of years, even though Indiana's better this year than they were last year, they're better offensively, defensively, hell, special teams. I don't trust Indiana on the road offensively to produce at the same level that they do at home. I think they're capable of doing it, but I can't put any money on it. And I'm not gonna make a gambling pick on this game. Indiana has every chance in the world of definitely covering this spread, but it troubles me at Iowa when Coach Cignetti said that they weren't really checking plays at the line of scrimmage because of crowd noise. Well, guess what? The crowd noise this week is going to be even worse probably than it was at Iowa. And Iowa is a terrible road environment to play in. Shout out to the Hawkeyes. Shout out to Kinnick Stadium. I think that Oregon pulls this game out because I feel like Indiana does not or has not checked 2 passing plays when 0 coverage is available. Indiana has 1 preseason All-American receiver in Elijah Surratt, and they have another guy who is a potential All-American in Omar Cooper. Those guys, at least after last week, after they played Iowa, they were tied for the most touchdowns at wide receiver in the Big Ten. They both had 6 apiece. I'm afraid that Indiana will not be able to capitalize on some offensive advantages that they have at home. And I think that the Ducks win this game, but I think it's going to be an absolute heater.
Well, one of the good things about both teams last week is we didn't talk about them because they're both not playing. They're both on the bye. One of the things, if you go back to our preseason show, we talked about what will happen when the Hoosiers take on Oregon. Because in the preview, we also talked about Oregon playing Penn State, and we also said Oregon had to show all the stops against the Hoosiers. They did, or I'm sorry, Oregon had to show all the stops to play when they played against Penn State. The film is out there. Film doesn't lie. The Oregon Ducks did take them to overtime. This is going to be very interesting to see. Sig studies film. He's very good at studying film. As you recall from Nick earlier, he did talk about taking some plays from Charlotte. Was it a Charlotte or one of those teams?
Yeah, UNC Charlotte and even Stanford. Signetti in the offseason was watching film of the Stanford Cardinal, who did not have a great year last year, but was stealing play concepts from anybody in the country. I mean, I like to say that I watch every game. Signetti literally watches every game. I don't have access to all the game film that he does, although maybe if we get big enough, I can pay and get that, and then I'll draw some stuff on the new whiteboard that I bought for you guys.
Absolutely. Well, you got Oregon who beat Penn State, and they beat Oregon State. They beat Northwestern, while Indiana's beat Iowa, Illinois, Indiana State, Kennesaw State, and Old Dominion. And a lot of people, for IU fans, are pushing for the propaganda that Old Dominion should be ranked. So with that,
they did receive, Old Dominion, I think, did receive a few votes this week. Sorry, not to cut you off.
No, you're all good. It is true. Well, that's so the beauty of this is if Indiana was hosting Oregon at home, I would probably say Indiana's gonna win because Oregon has to travel on the road, blah blah blah. Well, I can't use that excuse this week when picking a team. Well, what has Indiana done on the road against a good road opponent? Well, they went into Iowa and only scored 20, gave up 15, and only won by 5. Oregon went into Happy Valley and won in overtime. So this is a very tricky, fickle situation. Now, if I somehow just add all these points together, I think they're going to hit the over. I got it at like 55.5. Did you have the over by chance written down on your side too as well? Just for a cross reference, I got 55.5.
I thought it was 54.5 to open, but it's something like that.
Yeah, and it's going to fluctuate. I definitely take points in this game. You got 2 quarterbacks who are probably playing on Sunday eventually, whether it's a backup or a starting position. And then you also have Surratt, who's going to be a first-round draft pick this year. Is that right, Nick?
I hope so.
And you look at you go back and forth with these two teams. It's hard for me to pick against Oregon 2 weeks in a row. And I don't really like going against Indiana because I believe Sig has, for somebody that has to understand the transfer portal, Sig was on the other side when he was at James Madison. He was the one who's getting poached all his players to go to other places. Now with the budget, now with money at Indiana, he knows, he's like, hey, this is like quadruple of what I was working with before. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to get the players I want. I think that's one of the things, like Nick mentions, he's surprised about the results of the players that are coming in this year and how they're different than last year. I think Sig just knew how to do it. He's almost like his own general manager, getting the players he needs for his system. So again, I'm going to go with the over. I hope, because we are the Midwest Blitz, the Hoosiers win. If Oregon wins, I see Oregon playing in the college football playoffs. I also see, if Oregon wins, I would say that I also see them playing in the Big Ten championship this year. What else do you want to add to this game, Nick? Because I feel like you want to say some stuff about possibly Oregon secondary and how they're going to handle Surratt, the Waffle House of all players.
Waffle House. Yeah, I mean, if Indiana could take advantage of potential one-on-one scenarios where you have to cover Elijah Surratt one-on-one, a.k.a. the Waffle House. If you haven't seen the Waffle House Batman meme where he sees the bat signal and it's like Waffle House, we'll repost that this week. Did I mention Amari Washington on the inside against Indiana's interior offensive line? Amari Washington, the big D tackle for Oregon, is an absolute monster. That guy is a first or second round draft pick, in my opinion. I think he's going to give the Hoosiers trouble on the interior line, might slow the run game down early. Maybe the offense for IU has to make some adjustments. Also, Dylan Thieneman, the Purdue transfer, who had the game-winning interception against Penn State, he is lights out awesome. Excuse me. As is Bryce Betcher, the Eugene, Oregon hometown kid at linebacker who got drafted by the Houston Astros last year but decided, let's come back and play for the Ducks again. I love all these players from Oregon, but IU fans, if you see this, I love Indiana. I love them through the bad times. My father, rest in peace, was like the Cubs fans that said Indiana will be great at football one day, and that's coming to fruition. So I do not pick against the Hoosiers out of any disrespect or malice, but I need to see them be able to hit some big plays on the road, which they really haven't been able to do in tough road environments, which is most teams in football. You don't play as well on the road. I get that. I think this IU defense, though, can punch Oregon in the mouth of the run game, at least early. I really do think that that's possible. And at the beginning of the year, I wouldn't have said that. The Oregon offensive line is massive, and those guys are pretty fun to watch when they're clicking. But I think this IU front seven, coached by defensive coordinator Bryant Haynes, they play gap assignments like we talked about the USC matchup a second ago. They don't have good gap discipline, and they're not aggressive against the run game. Indiana is going to be aggressive in the run game, and they are going to be disciplined against the run game. So I just could not be more excited about this game. Go Hoosiers, Ducks, all respect in the world. Boy, I cannot wait for this game. I can barely eat or sleep till it happens.
I mean, just some stats from like a booklet that you get passed out before the game. Okay, both teams have strong turnover margins. Very good. Both teams avoid getting penalized. Also very good. But here's a stat that's not good. Indiana ranks 129th FBS in red zone defense, allowing opponents to score on 100% trips, while Oregon's red zone is number one, scoring 100%. So I didn't want to, make you feel some type of way, but when somebody
That's
says 100 goes,
because almost nobody's gotten in the red zone against Indiana. I think there's been like 3 or 4 red zone trips the whole season. Of the 3 touchdowns Indiana's given up that I can think of, 2 of them were 75-yard touchdown runs by Old Dominion, who has their one loss against Indiana. And those 2 75-yard touchdown runs were by a quarterback on a read option play where Indiana missed execution, which full credit to them. They busted off 2 long runs. The red zone scoring percentage for Indiana is almost irrelevant because nobody's gotten in the red zone almost the whole season. Illinois had the long touchdown pass that was a blown coverage by one of the safeties that D'Angelo Pons tried to pass off, and the safety didn't pick it up. So Indiana hasn't even allowed people to get in the red zone, honestly. And I'll say this to a credit for Oregon's defense. If Oregon hadn't went into soft zone coverage against Penn State, Drew Aller's numbers would have been horrendous. His only real sustained success in the passing game was when Oregon had a 2-score lead and then tried to go into the prevent defense. You know what my dad said about the prevent defense, Coach Drew? It prevents you from winning. That was my dad's joke, but that's why that game went to overtime. If Oregon would have stayed the same defensively, that was a 2-score game. Oregon whipped Penn State's ass at Happy Valley. I don't know. Both of these defenses have been pretty good. My only question as far as a team matchup is, Oregon did not shut down Oregon State as well as I thought they would. I had a bet on that game, and Oregon didn't cover. I'm not mad, Ducks. I just would like it if you take care of me when I place a bet on you. But Oregon State's pretty bad. But I don't know, rivalry game. Maybe we see a little bit of let up from the Ducks at times, whereas Indiana has not taken their foot off the gas on defense all year. I mean, they absolutely come out to try and humiliate you. And, you know, in a matchup game like this between two teams with close to or equal talent, Oregon is on paper more talented than Indiana. I understand that. Indiana is just like the Notre Dame game last year. They gave up the 98-yard touchdown run after the Curtis Rourke interception on the 2-yard line. Indiana will force you to beat them. They're not going to drop back in 2 deep coverage and let you dink and dunk them. They absolutely will not do it. And if you beat them and you beat them over the top, Signetti and Brian Haynes are going to live with it. This is, dude, all right. Take me out of this game, Drew. I can't say anything I haven't already said. This is going to be an aggressively played team on both sides of the ball, or strategy on both sides of the ball, excuse me.
I mean, you did hit on the nail. I was just reporting stats, and that's how stats can lie.
Hey,
Let's
you're all
say,
good.
I'm just saying, because that's funny you say it, because again, previews, we're looking at stats, right? I mean, let's say not Notre Dame. Let's say X college puts in a quarterback, and his completion rating before the game percentage is like 100%. But then you look at it, and that's because he only played in garbage time, and he has 5 passes, and that's 5 completed, and we're already at game 7. So stats can tell an interesting story if you guys aren't following at home when you look at that stuff. But like Nick just pointed out, sometimes it's okay to question stats, right? Is it about that time for a Midwest goodbye, or do you want to keep talking Oregon, Indiana?
Well, Drew, I was, if you can see back into my kitchen, I was making chili earlier. I'm pretty excited to get to that. But I mean, chili takes a long time to make properly. That's why I have it in the slow cooker. And so I feel like that's appropriate for the Midwest goodbye, because the Midwest goodbye doesn't just happen. It takes time and commitment. You got to really be there for it.
Like Indiana's football program.
God willing.
Absolutely. If you guys haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, like, comments, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, all the good stuff. This is Coach Drew signing off. Yeah, yup.
Yeah, yup. Go Hoosiers.
Hoosiers.